think needs to get out and is important for everybody to know or be aware of, and it's 100% factual, true, and I would swear as a Christian that on a Bible that this is all 100% factual truth. I guess I can begin with the premise of I've never heard of a cryptid called the Dog Man, and I believe that if I had known about this before, I would have done things a little bit easier in this situation, but I would have got through it easier. But I'll go with, my story starts as I was driving a truck in Manistee National Forest. And
how long ago?
It was 5 years ago, and I was bringing a load of paper from a mill up there, 43,000 pounds, and I was starting to lose air on the way back to the terminal and being stopped for the night because I was home every night, and I was in a day cab, so I was home every night. And I had an air leak. I wanted to fix it before I got too far in. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if it was gonna get worse, so I stopped to look at it. I found the air leak by the back brake chamber, on the trailer, and it was a cut or a line, partially cut. Had things to fix it so I wouldn't have to wait on service very long. I'd just be done in a few minutes instead of waiting for hours. So I got out and I was looking around and found it, and I was having a bad feeling when I was underneath the trailer, and I was hearing a vocalization. I didn't know what exactly the sound was. It wasn't natural that I ever heard before, and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it at the time. But as I was looking, as those sounds and the feeling in my gut was just odd and not normal for me, and I was looking around and I saw some shadowing and a light being blotted out and everything, and this would have occurred between 7 and 8 o'clock in the evening in June, and as I said, if I hadn't mentioned before, it was about 5 years ago, and so it would have been daylight, and there was plenty of light to see. It wasn't even nowhere near getting dark yet, and I was seeing shadowing in the wood line where all of the thicket was at. About 30 yards away, I was seeing dark and light in different areas, and I was in bear country, so I knew it was. I knew it was probably a black bear. That's what I perceived it to be at the time. And so when I got the idea that it could have been a black bear, I just got back in the truck because I thought, well, I don't really want to deal with a black bear if it's, you don't know, like rabies could be a thing or anything like that. So a crazed bear is not a good idea to be messing with. So I got in the truck, checked out my air. My air was good. It held. It took me about not even 5 minutes, but it was really a weird feeling I was getting from the woods that I was near at the time, and I was seeing things that I didn't really give it a lot of thought. I just thought everything was normal still. But when I started driving, got on the road, checking my left side mirror for any traffic. This was on a 2-lane paved road. Very lightly traveled, but it is a main road through Michigan in the Manistee National Forest. And as I started going up, I was at the bottom of a hill at a snowplow turnaround. And as I started going up the hill from a dead stop for about a mile, I was looking, as I said, I was looking at my rearview mirror on the left side, on my driver's side, and there was no traffic. I don't even think one car had passed that time I'd been there, maybe if that. And I started going up the hill, and as I looked in my right side mirror, as I was looking over there, at the same time I saw, that it was darker than it should be, and there was a wolf head the size of my window, and my windows were down, and he was trotting along next to me, and I was about 20-25 miles an hour at that point, and he was stooping down on two legs, looking down inside of my cabin. I'm at 9 feet tall in my seat. So, as anybody would, I've never heard of a dog man. I didn't know what it was. The first thing that was going through my mind, time slows down. I just thought this kind of a werewolf-looking creature. I could see his shoulders, his paws were coming up, his hands. Actually, they were hands that were coming up close to my window, onto my door, scratching my windowsill and on my handle. I could hear the nails, the claws, and his, So as I was moving along at that speed, I would a million things at the same time. Time slows down, and I thought I was in like an alternate reality or something, because a creature like this don't exist in reality that I've ever known of. And even though I have heard of Bigfoot, and I know those to be something that is in our reality, that this is a whole different thing altogether. It's not even close to what a Bigfoot is. It's a lot. It has a lot of sharp teeth, and the teeth on this thing were white. It's like brilliant white. 3-inch long fangs, bottom and top, at least maybe 3.5 or so. Pure black, pointed ears. It had yellow eyes. It was at least 10 feet tall, gauging from how it was stooping and looking in. His yellow eyes were darting all over the place. Maybe he was looking around to see how he could get in, or just assessing the inside of the cab, but he was looking at me, giving me a feeling of, I don't know if it was really, if you would call it like a mind speak, like some people might describe, but I think it was some communication through his eyes because of the intelligence that was there. It wasn't an animal look, and this all took place in 15-20 seconds at the most. There was a lot going on in all of this description. I was just taking it all in as time had slowed down for me. And
how did it look on its face, Joe? Tell me how it looked. Did it look good? Did it look like an animal? Did it look evil?
How this creature looked was mad and determined to get to me, and he was sneering, and he wasn't making any noises vocally at the time. I never heard anything, any vocalization or growling, but the looks he was giving me and what I was reading from his body language and his sneering at me and the intelligence in his eyes was telling me that, I'm here to get you, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's kind of what popped into my head. And there was so many things that going through my mind at the same time. I thought about trying to roll up the window. There's a lot of things, but I'm like, that isn't going to help me, because it's just not. Even if I did, and I couldn't even find the little levers to pull, the power windows even. It was like I was already shaking, and just my adrenaline was kicking in, and I was just all over the place mentally. But I did have enough faculties to keep the truck on the road, keep it going up the hill. I didn't even really think of my gun until I got this idea in my mind, what was coming across from what I thought was a werewolf, that, oh, you think I can't do anything about it? Well, watch this, watch this. You think I can't? And then I had a gun strapped right here. It was a 45 Colt, and I just pulled it like this and shot twice, and he went down like I mean, instantly went down. I was looking at him as he was sliding into the weeds, and his head was flopping around, his legs and his arms were stiff. I knew it was a brain shot from hunting. He didn't know what hit him. It was definitely a brain shot, and I was at almost point blank range. So I'm pretty sure I got him through the eye orbit, pretty sure, because that head was thick. And I think that would be a glancing blow with any other place on the skull, because his head was at least the size of a boar grizzly, if not even. I think it was bigger, but his head looked huge because of the mane, like a lion's mane. He was solid black, but from maybe the middle of where his ears were until it went back to his shoulders, it was as thick, if not thicker, than a lion's mane. And everything on this animal was black. His skin on his hands were black, where there wasn't hair. His claws were black. Everything was black on him except his teeth and his eyes. And,
human-looking hand, right? Or
his human-like hands. I saw those really close up, and I would say they were about the size of my steering wheel if they were splayed out. And that is really big, a huge, probably 14 inches across, probably at least, it's at least that big. And his claws were at least 3 inches long, and they were extremely thick, like cigar thickness, I would say. Teeth, the canine teeth were about, I would say, a thumb thickness at the top, and down to a point at about 3.5 inches. And after that happened, I saw all the carnage that was going on in my rearview mirror after he went down, and I knew he was dead. I knew it was a kill shot. I've seen it hunting plenty of times when I've gotten a brain hit, and I knew he was dead. But I wanted to make sure if I was I didn't even know what was going on. I was seriously thinking I'm in an alternate reality at this point. I just was, and I was, going through. I wasn't really panicked, but it's the scariest I've ever been in my life. I mean, nothing even comes even. It's in the stratosphere compared to anything else in my life.
You're probably in shock.
Yeah, I was in shock, but I still had enough. I had still had enough faculties left to control my truck, to think about, I just killed this thing. If this really happened, and I'm not didn't just lose my mind, or I just dreamt this, I don't know what just happened, but I'm going to turn around, and if this thing is still laying there, I know where there's a turnaround up here about a mile or a mile and a half. After he went down, I just knew, after all these things that was going on in my head, that I wanted to make sure in my own mind that this really occurred, and that if this thing is still laying there, this werewolf is still laying there, that's about 10 foot tall, and looks like it weighs about 1,000 pounds. It's like the size of a horse, at least a good sized horse. And because I could see the whole body as it fell, and as it was sliding and knocking down weeds off the gravel and dirt that it was into, and then it turns into woods about 20 feet in. And I saw his feet, I saw his legs. His body was like human-like. Shoulders, had biceps looked like bowling ball size muscles. He was human looking all the way down until he got to a longer tail. He had a tail which was about 5 feet long, I would say. He was about half the length of his body, it looked like to me, and his feet looked like dog feet or wolf feet, but a little bit longer than like a dog paw would be, more round. These looked a little bit long, but still the same basic look to it. just maybe dinner plate size or something, instead of, like a dog being about like maybe the size of of maybe half of your hand. A good sized dog is about half of your hand. This would be probably the size of a dinner plate. So as after I had fired 2 shots, as I was looking at this creature fall and slide through the weeds, plow the weeds down, I was deciding that at that point that I knew it was dead, but I wanted to make sure. So I turned around about a mile up the road where I knew there was a turnaround that I could turn a 53-foot trailer around, and I wanted to make sure that I killed it for sure. Even though I knew, I just had to know more about what just occurred, other than, even though it was dead, I'd run it over with my truck and it would be dead. I knew it was going to damage the truck too, because it was big, and if you hit something like that, it's going to tear your truck up. But I didn't care. I just wanted to make sure it was dead, and I could see for myself what really just happened there. So as I was coming back down the hill, I'm looking right where that werewolf was laying, and you can't miss it. It would have been a big black lump the size of a horse laying there. Well, it was gone now, and this is maybe at the most 5 minutes after, by the time I got back to this point. So as I was trying to see what was going on, there was a Jeep parked right next to where that creature was laying, and you could see all of the weeds that were smashed down, plowed over by this creature. And as I was approaching, there was 2 people there looking around in the same spot where it had laid, and I was concerned about these people being in a spot where it's dangerous. And I stopped and I asked why they were there, what are they doing, if they needed help. And there was a man and a woman there, and they were just looking at me a little bewildered, and they just said, well, we were just stopped. There was something interesting. A couple of bears were fighting or something in this area, something like that, they told me. And they just thought they were looking for that, and they don't, of course there was nothing there at that point, but you could see where there was some activity, quite a bit had just happened there. You could tell from the weeds, and the weeds that were knocked over going into the wood line.
Looked like something was dragged up through there?
Yeah, something big was dragged up through into the wood line, into the thicket, gone. And so they give me the story like they were just watching a few bears playing around or fighting each other and whatever that was. But I was concerned about, at the time, I didn't give that a lot of thought, but I was worried about them being around outside where I just knew what I just did. I thought anyway what just occurred, and this thing must have been just happened. So what I did is I told him, as I was talking to him, I just told him that I didn't want to let them know that I'd just been there, because I didn't want to sound crazy in that what I just did. But I thought that as I was talking to him, there was we exchanged some words, and it kind of, everything was alluding to, they were telling me that they were just trying to observe a few bears that were over there wrestling around or fighting or something. But I knew what had just happened, and they were probably just trying to tell me that they thought they had just seen something different, so they wouldn't think each other's story was crazy. So we just exchanged our goodbyes after that. I just said, well, I'll just see you later, and there was nothing more to that. But as I was sitting there, I did notice a few odd things. I was noticing their vehicle, because It did seem a little bit strange to me that, one of the things that I did mention as I was talking to them, and they said there was a couple of them there, and I said, and as they said that I said, so there was two of them, and then they said yes, yeah, and I'm like, well, that just told me that the one I saw wasn't the only one there, the one that I shot. That was another thing that surprised me, that there was more than one, possibly two or three, the way it sounds, at least there, or a pack, who knows, but I only saw the one, so after I said, goodbye to them, and that they just said they didn't need any help or anything, and so I was just thinking about all of this on the way back, and I was in shock. I was really in shock for a good while and I was still driving the truck, and I didn't even know how I got back, and I shouldn't have been driving a truck in that state of mind, but that's just the way it is. I wasn't going to stay around or park anywhere near there. I'm getting home, so.
So Joe, how long did this, from beginning where you saw the creature to the end where you shot it, how long did that last?
At the most, it was 15 to 20 seconds.
Okay, so when did you say the whole encounter lasted? You're going to edit me out, right? Mm-hmm. So just say the whole encounter lasted 15 to 20 seconds, and that was it. It was over.
Yeah. Well, yeah. After all of these, through all of this encounter, the whole encounter lasted from when I saw the creature until I had shot it and it went on the ground. It was no more than 20 seconds. But the whole encounter really lasted a little longer because of turning around and the people. It was probably a total of 10 to 15 minutes from front to back of the whole encounter by the time I turned around, and the exchange with the two people that I talked to that stopped where the creature went down. But I would say 10 to 15, 20 seconds tops for the encounter, and 10 to 15 minutes for the encounter front to back, for the total encounter altogether. So that is it in a nutshell, really. I mean, after that, I did have, when I did start coming down from my adrenaline as I was driving, I did notice I was wet, and that was something that had never happened in my life either, and I didn't even know this at the time, and it was the most terrifying thing that I think anybody could ever go through, worse than even any combat situation, because at least you know what you're dealing with there, and you know you're in a reality that you can deal with. I didn't even know what was going on. It was a horror show, in my mind. I didn't know. It was really bad, and so I had PTSD, as I think it would be a thing anybody would experience. This would have that, and I'm a lot better now. I had nightmares for a good 6 months to a year, on and off. It was getting less prevalent as time went on, and I don't have them anymore after 5 years. I never have them, or if I do, I don't ever remember them. And so I'm in a lot better shape, and I thought it was important to know that I'm mentally more capable of getting this information out, that I should do that at this point. So that's why my story's out now. It just took me this long to get with the right people that I trusted and that I know have my back and are there with me 100%.
Joe, so tell us, did anything ever happen to you in consequence of you killing this thing?
Well, yeah, that was another thing. After I got quite a bit better from the nightmares and everything. I had a family member tell me I should get this out to the public, that there's information in my story that that's not out there anywhere else that we're aware of, and that I need to put it out there somewhere. So I did that. I talked to one podcaster that's popular in the cryptid space, and I didn't want to be out there public, so he took notes and he narrated my story about 4 years ago. And after that, it wasn't, maybe it was about I think it would have been about 3 months, not even 3 months later, I was detained at a scale house by state police to wait for federal authorities to come and talk to me, or had some business with me of some kind. So after waiting for around there for a few hours, a couple of federal officials came up to me and told me that, in a very intimidating way, that when they first showed up, that they were very, very angry. The both of them, they were intimidating and angry, and I almost thought they were going to cuff me, but they didn't. I didn't know what was going on, and they said, "You killed one of our assets, and this is how things are going to go down from this point on." And I at first I didn't know what they were talking about, but then it just popped into my head. Well, the only thing I killed in the last year or so was that creature, and that these federal officials are now jumping on me about that, and that just popped into my head. So this is something that is their property, and they were mad that I killed it, and they were trying to get me to stop talking about it, because they probably knew who I was because of my narration story.
What exactly did they tell you? Can you remember?
Well, yes, and I mean verbatim. I don't remember
Just
everything.
tell us what you can. Right?
But I do remember them saying, we can do a lot of things to make sure you don't talk about this anymore or discuss it with anybody. And if you can, as a truck driver, you can't keep a job if you have a dirty drug test. A dirty drug test could happen. Monetarily things can happen, and they did shut my bank account off. So that was, I think they were flexing to show that they can. So I did. I shut up. When I found out they could do this, I shut down and just shut it off up until recently, because I didn't want all that smoke. I just didn't want it, and I didn't think that at the time I had a different outlook on it than I do now. I had more time to assess it in a way that's, I think, healthier. And and this is another thing, while I was there, they took my phone. They knew I had a gun on me, because I'm a concealed carrier, and they took my gun because they said, "We need your gun and your phone." They just knew I had a gun. They give me your gun and your phone. So they give me my phone back, and the thing is they didn't give me my gun back, and I said, "Well, how am I going to get my gun back?" They told me, "Well, we'll let you know. Don't call us. We'll call you," type of thing, and you'll be lucky if you ever get it back, But we'll let you know how to get it back when we say, They told me in so many words I probably will not get it back, but I still don't have it. But the thing is
Are you worried about what they might do with your gun and try to blame it on you?
Yeah. Well,
say that.
Yeah, that could be that's something that, because they're trying to cover up and hide these creatures, they intimidate you, and they could probably use my gun against me in some kind of a framing situation, and I realized that. I didn't realize that at the time. I just thought they were, just being, jerks about it, and just because they could. Well, what I do know is when the feds pulled, I know they were feds because the car that they pulled up in was black as well. It was a different, that Jeep that I mentioned was also government plated. So I didn't think about it at the time, but I think it was government plated. I do remember it was a white plate. Now, at the time, I didn't pay a lot of attention, but going back in my mind, I'm pretty sure it was a government plate that was white. So, but when they did stop me and pull me into the scale house and show up, they were in a black vehicle. And I did look at that. It was government plates. I mean, U.S. government, white plates on it. So it was obvious they were federal officials of some kind. But I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea until they walked up and said, "You killed one of our assets, and we're here to tell you that, we don't want you to talk about what happened with that again, because we can really make your life miserable." So, and they showed me that they could, and as like I said, they took my gun, they gave me my phone back, and I think they're using the gun as maybe a way to use as leverage or some kind of nefarious framing, if they deem necessary at some point. That's the only thing that I think the reason why they would, retain my weapon. So I don't know what to think about it any other way other than I do think it's important that the reason I think they do this is because these are something that they mentioned it was an asset, so this is probably another tool in their toolbox for military operations of some kind. And if they don't keep it under wraps, it won't be a useful tool anymore for them or whatever. But they keep people quiet when they do encounter these things. I think I need to get this out there to as many people as possible, that they know this information, so you can take it for what you want, take away from it what you believe or what you don't want to believe, but at least you heard it, and if it happens to you, you got something to fall back on if it happens to you and you don't even think it's a real thing. But I'm here to tell you, it's probably in your best interest to take heed to this truth that I'm trying to put out. I said the tail was about 5 foot long, about half the length of its body, and it had to be at least 10 feet. It was a massive creature.
Just big yellow eyes, and you say it had a black iris in the middle of the eye.
Yeah, no, but it did have a black iris in the middle of a yellow eye, and I would say they were at least golf ball size eyeballs. At least they were a little bigger. If you imagine the size of a skull or a head, a wolf head that big, that you think of grizzly bear at least, or bigger head with it, and then it just looks so bulky, muscular, bulky too. It wasn't lanky. It was real muscular.
Describe the legs, Joe.
The legs
in
were
detail. Yeah.
The legs. Well, they were human type thighs. They were really thick, muscular thighs. From the knee down looked like a dog or a wolf. From the knee down, it was thick. It was thick thighs, real, like human shape, similarly human. But at the knee, it changed into like a total dog or a wolf leg, with double joints going one way and the other way.
So there was no human calf muscle.
No,
just a hock there.
Just a hawk. Yeah. And then, like I did mention, that the feet looked like dog or regular canine feet. They weren't another pair of hands, of course, but they were longer looking than a normal canine that we know of, and I would say they were size of a good, maybe at least 12 inches around, I would say, the feet. like that, just and a little longer looking. They, for some reason, I could see that they weren't quite normal canine feet, but they were almost just a little longer. It looked like to me.
And so the head looked like a German. You said the head looked like a German Shepherd, other than the lines like vein going across, and had a shorter muzzle.
It's shorter muzzle than I would say. It looked 90% maybe like a German Shepherd or wolf, but with a little bit shorter snout, wider and shorter in scale to the skull, and the ears looked pointed and with tufts of hair on top, and the eyes were really big. It was squinting, in the wind and a little bit because of the wind and everything rushing past the truck, and it was right there. I mean, it was just nothing I could do about it not getting in the truck, though. That was my biggest concern. But it didn't. I didn't let it in the truck either. So. But I think if I hadn't done what I'd done, it would have been over for me. If I hesitated much longer, at least, then or I didn't have the gun at all. And the gun that the feds eventually did take from me was a different gun altogether. I wasn't carrying the gun that I used so I still have the gun that I shot the dog man with. The extent of my situation with my dog man experience, and it's 100% the truth. And I feel that even if you don't believe what I'm saying is truthful, it might be something you can draw on in the future in case you ever do have an experience. If you watch this and you see something that you can fall back on from just hearing about it, and which is something an advantage that I didn't have. That would be at least an advantage that I never had. I think I would have got through this a little easier if I'd at least known about these things even existing, or even heard of it. At least I would have probably been through this mentally a little sooner, or maybe not as bad even. But so take away what you can with this, and I think it's good for future posterity, for people that don't even believe that this happened. I just know it's something good